All right, AGS1, we are back with 3.6 Interpreting Functions task. Now, you guys, today's video, I'm going to walk you through some similar type problems to the formative, but they're not the exact numbers, so watch out for that. First up, before we start talking about any specific examples, I just want to, in general, talk about the ins and outs of a function. So if you have some function here, f of x, it could be a line, it could be a curve, it could be anything, but just if it's a function, if you put a into the function, so here's a, and if you trace it up to the line, you know, a is the input, and then an f of a is going to be the output of the function. So if you put in an x, a y comes out. If you put in an a, an f of a comes out. Now, this graph right here, you should copy down in your notes, and the tick marks need to be exact because we're going to be doing some kind of exact things with it. First up, what is f of 3? Well, this means putting a 3 into the function and seeing what comes out of the function. So, if I count my tick marks, 1, 2, 3, that means right here is where 3 would be, and it touches the function at y equals -1. So once again, here's 3, and if I put that 3 into the function, this dot right here corresponds with -1. So that means f of 3 is equal to -1. Now the next one, so that first one was putting an input and seeing what output comes out. The next one is they tell us the output. The output is 2, and they want to know what x went into it to get an output of 2. So now, instead of starting with the x and finding the y, you got to start with the y of 2, trace it over to the function, and then drop it down and see what input would have given us that. So, here, the output of 2 corresponds with an input of -3. So we can say x equals -3, or another way to write that is f of -3 is equal to 2. If you put in a -3, a 2 comes out of it. What is the domain of f of x? For domain, you just have to look at all the x values of the function. So if I just look at the x's, it starts here at -5, touches all these negatives, touches 0, then it touches all these positive x's all the way up to 9. So this distance from here, here all the way over to here is the domain of the function. So the domain in interval notation, it's going to be a bracket because it includes -5 and goes all the way up to +9. What is the range of f of x? This is where you kind of like, I tell my students that you hold your pencil vertically for the domain and hold your pencil sideways for the range. So if I choose a different highlighter, the range of this function, if I just look at the y values, here at the left, they touch +3, and then they go down to 0, and then all the way to, what was that, -4? So the domain is vertically, the range vertically touches at +3 and goes all the way down to -4. So if we write that in interval notation, it would be -4 all the way up to +3. And we're using hard brackets on this because there's no turning points or anything like that where that surfboard would be 0 or would be horizontal. So it's including those endpoints. And there's no open dots or anything like that. For what interval is f of x greater than 0? F of x greater than 0 means, so the way you need to think of this is that f of x is the output of the function, which are like the y values. So they're asking when are the y values less than 0. Sorry, I think I said greater than earlier. So if I zoom in on this part of the graph right here, up here, this is all above the x-axis where the y's are greater than 0. But then right at this point right here, it crosses the x-axis, and then all of these values here have negative y values. So that means at positive 1 all the way up to 9 is when the whole function is below the x-axis, aka when the y's are negative, aka when the f of x's are negative. So that would be starting, well, we have to do an open parentheses because right at 1, it's on the x-axis, which means that it's not negative or positive. So this is 1 all the way up to 9, and including 9. Interesting problem. Where is f of x decreasing? Remember that you read a graph left to right, and this entire graph is going downhill the entire time. So it's decreasing constantly from -5 all the way up to positive 9. So -5 all the way up to positive 9. Where is it increasing? Well, once again, if you read the graph left to right, it's not increasing anywhere. It's always going downhill. So never. Where is f of x greater than 1? Well, you guys, if f of x is a y, it's an output. So we want to know where the outputs are bigger than positive 1. Let's see, this diagram's getting a little messy, but here at positive 1, if I trace it over to the function, this whole portion is greater than positive 1 in terms of the y's, starting at x equal to -1. So that means all the x values from here to -1 and then stopping are going to be greater than positive 1 on the y, in terms of y. So the answer is going to be -5 up to -1, including -5, but not including the -1, because right at -1, it's equal to 1. It's not greater than 1. Next up, we got a table. So now we're not like looking at a graph, we're just looking at an input-output table. What is f of 2? This means putting a 2 into the function and seeing what comes out of the function. So right here, when f is equal to 2, you get out a -5, which means f of 2 is equal to -5. Next one says, for what values is f of x equal to 5? So if I look, this is an output, and I'm going to look in the table here in the f of x's to see when it's equal to 5. I see right here it's equal to 5, and again right here it's equal to 5. So there's two answers for this. X is equal to -2 and positive 4. Those are the inputs, -2 and positive 4. Both of those inputs will give you an output of positive 5. For what values does f of x seem to be decreasing? So for this one, I kind of look in this whole column here to see when it's going up and when it's going down. So on the side, you can kind of put, keep track of, to get from 10 to positive 5, that from here to here is a -5. Then to get from 5 to 0 is another -5. Then 0 to -5 is still going down by 5. Still going down by 5. But then, you guys, right here, from -10 up to -5, like, it went up again. So you have to do +5. Then this follows another +5. Then here, another +5. So here, this section is where it was decreasing. from here to here. Here is where it's increasing. So in terms of the x's, it started increasing. Excuse me. It started increasing from 1 to 2. It jumped up 5, so it's starting at 1, and then it kept increasing 1, 2, 3, 4. So for what values does f of x be increasing? We are going to use interval notation for this. That right at 1, it started increasing and then went up to 4, and it was still increasing there. Okay, you guys, like I said, the Go formative has different numbers, so this is the similar style question, so use these notes to help you